You've likely written a lot of Task 2 essays already, but are you sure that you're doing it correctly? This lesson will show you how to put all the pieces together and make sure that you're writing the perfect Task 2 answer. As always, I will be showing you the most common mistakes that IELTS candidates make, and that will allow you to avoid those mistakes. I also have a task just for you at the end of this lesson. My name is Lar Ryan. I've been an IELTS examiner, I've been an IELTS teacher at the British Council, I have over a decade of experience helping IELTS students, and I am the founder of Complete Test Success. So the very first paragraph of absolutely every Task 2 essay is the introduction, and the first sentence of the introduction is called the paraphrase. To write a paraphrase, we change the question statement into our own words. Here is a Task 2 question, and this part highlighted here is the part that we need to paraphrase. Now, a very common mistake that IELTS students make is they try to paraphrase just one word at a time from the question statement, but this normally results in a paraphrase that does not have the same meaning. Now, let me show you how this happens. So the student would take the first word, some, and then think of another word that has a similar meaning. Now, the word many and some do not have the same meaning, but this approach will lead you to a lot of incorrect words. People will be paraphrased as humans, say paraphrased as talk, that, oh, that's just a grammar word, so we don't need that. Public gets paraphrased as not private. Libraries gets paraphrased as places to borrow books. And you can see that this approach really doesn't work because saying many humans talk not private places to borrow books is complete nonsense. It doesn't mean anything. So this approach of just trying to do one word at a time simply doesn't work. Instead of paraphrasing one word at a time, we're going to do it one phrase at a time. Let me show you how to do this. So we're just going to take the full phrase, some people say that, and try to write this in our own words. I will say, some feel that. And next we will just take the phrase, public libraries are losing their importance. So we're going to paraphrase all of this at the same time. And to do that, I will say, public libraries are becoming less important. The next phrase from the question statement, because of the internet, I will say, due to the internet. And then others believe that becomes, while others maintain that. And finally, they are still just as important will be, they continue to be as important. And I'm sure some of you are looking at my paraphrase and wondering why I've copied so many words from the question. If you were thinking that, you're right. It actually would be better if I had none of the words from the question. However, this is the best that I can do with my current level of vocabulary. When you're paraphrasing, the single most important thing is that your paraphrase has the exact same meaning as the original question statement. If it doesn't have the exact same meaning, then how is the reader going to know what your essay is about? So, to help you understand the best approach, I'm going to show you 4 paraphrases, starting with the best and making our way down to the worst. So first we will look at the best one, which has almost no words taken from the question and has the exact same meaning, which of course is the most important part. There's a belief that public libraries are not as valuable nowadays due to the impact of the web. Another view, however, is that these places continue to be as relevant as ever. Okay, so that there is a much better paraphrase than the one that I wrote. This is the second best paraphrase. It's the one we already looked at. It has the same meaning as the question, so that's fantastic, but it does have quite a few words taken from the original question statement. Now this third one is actually just copied the question word for word. Now you really shouldn't do this in your test because it indicates to the examiner that you have a very poor level of vocabulary or possibly that you didn't understand one word of the question. And this is the worst of the 4 paraphrases. There's a belief that buildings where books can be borrowed are not as significant nowadays due to the impact of the web. Another view, however, is that these places continue to be as relevant as ever. Now this one has used none of the words from the question, so that's great, but it doesn't have the same meaning as the question, so it's actually useless. We would never refer to a library as a building where books can be borrowed, and the word significant does not have the same meaning as important in this context. And that is why this is the worst of the 4 paraphrases. So as you can see, the key here is just not to take any risks with your vocabulary. I originally wrote the paraphrase in second place here because I was worried that if I aimed for the best one, I would make mistakes and actually end up with the worst one. And for the next part of the introduction, I need to write my outline statement. Now, something I've seen quite a lot in the IELTS test is candidates writing these generic sentences that they can just use in absolutely any essay, regardless of what the question is or what it's about. I'm referring to outline statements like this. This is a very interesting topic and one that I will explore in detail throughout this essay. Outline statements like this are absolutely useless. The examiner is going to know that this candidate learned the sentence before the IELTS test and that they had fully planned on using it no matter what the question was. This type of an outline statement is not going to improve your score. Instead, you're going to write an outline statement that contains the main ideas you've generated for this essay. Now, I've already shown you how to generate ideas, so I'm not going to get into that again here, but you can watch that video by clicking the link here, and I will leave it in the description below as well. So here's the question again, and here's the plan that I've written. We only need the main ideas for now because these are what we're going to include in the outline statement. And now let's look at the outline statement that I've written for this question. I first gave a reason why people have the first view by saying, they seem less beneficial because, for research, the internet is far superior. I then gave a reason for why people have the second view by saying, whereas they are still as valuable for students who need a quiet place to study. And then I stated which view I agree with and included a reason for my opinion. I said, my personal opinion is that they're still as relevant as they're a free source of entertainment. Now, of course, this sentence doesn't belong on its own. It's the paraphrase and the outline statement together that make the introduction. So this is the full introduction with the paraphrase and the outline statement that we already looked at. Next, we're going to look at the body paragraphs, and this particular essay requires 3 main ideas, so we're going to have 3 body paragraphs. The first body paragraph is going to discuss the first main idea that we mentioned in our outline statement. And that's exactly what we need to put in the first sentence of our body paragraph, which is referred to as the topic sentence. So in this topic sentence, we're just repeating the same idea again, and ideally we would not need to use the same vocabulary that we had in the introduction, but there is a very good chance that you won't have any other vocabulary. Don't take any risks. If you need to use the same words again, that's fine. The most important thing is that the reader will clearly understand which main idea you're discussing, so range of vocabulary is not more important than clarity. So here's my plan for the first body paragraph, and I'm going to just follow this exactly. Where students sometimes go wrong is when they think of a new idea and decide to change the plan. As your ideas are already specific and relevant, there's no such thing as a better idea, so always just stick to the plan that you created before you started to write your essay. Now here is my topic sentence for the first body paragraph. Libraries are less useful nowadays because researching a topic online is better. And here is the rest of my body paragraph. Finding information on the internet is faster and there is more information available than any building could store. For example, Trinity College Dublin had to close down for several days last year when the internet stopped working as the students couldn't do any research. Again, you're going to take absolutely no risks with your vocabulary here, but it is a good opportunity to show the range of grammar that you're capable of. When you're writing your essay, keep in mind you should make it as easy as possible as you can for yourself. Like that example that I used about Trinity College, that wasn't last year, that was about 10 years ago, and I honestly cannot remember how long they really closed down for. But of course, I'm not going to include any of that in my example. All I want to do is make my life as easy as possible, so I'm just going to say it was last year and they closed for several days. That's easier to say and it gets the job done, so there's no reason for me to make things more complicated than they need to be. Okay, so let's look at the second and third body paragraphs. And here's the plan I had for my second main idea. Quiet place to study, students in noisy neighbourhoods, example, my apartment. And the full paragraph. On the other hand, libraries are as essential for students who need a quiet place to study. For those living in noisy environments, a public library is a perfect place to find the silence required to concentrate on reviewing lessons. My apartment complex, for instance, has a public library on the ground floor which is always busy with teenagers during the summer exams. And my plan for the third body paragraph, important because free source of entertainment, purchasing is expensive, adults and children. And the full paragraph is this. As far as I'm concerned, libraries are still as important as they provide people with free entertainment. For avid readers, regularly purchasing new books is an expensive habit, but public libraries offer a means for children and adults alike to enjoy storybooks and novels without financial restrictions. And that just leaves us with the final paragraph, the conclusion. The conclusion is basically a summary of your essay, and it's essentially the exact same information that we already had in the introduction paragraph. The first common mistake that IELTS students make here is using inaccurate vocabulary. Of course, you've already had to talk about the topic of the question throughout the entire essay, and this is going to be your third time mentioning the main ideas. It's very unlikely that you're going to have any new vocabulary for this paragraph. If you do have new vocabulary, by all means put it in your conclusion, but I'm just saying that you shouldn't feel under pressure to not repeat words when you're writing this paragraph. Using the same vocabulary again is a much better option than making mistakes and bringing down your lexical resource score and bringing down your coherence and cohesion score. The other common mistake that IELTS candidates make when writing their conclusion is they include unnecessary information. There should not be any new ideas or new information in your conclusion. All you're doing here is repeating the exact same ideas again. So let's look at the conclusion I wrote for this question. In conclusion, those who feel that libraries have become less important understand that doing research online is superior. In contrast, those who feel public libraries are still important understand the necessity for students to have a quiet place to study. And I personally agree with this view, as the availability of free reading materials is an amazing service. And that's our essay completed. And this is what the full essay looks like when it's all in the same place. Now, what I see a lot when students finish writing their essays is they start to count how many words they've written. Doing that is a complete waste of your time. When you write essays regularly, you'll have a good idea of how long each body paragraph needs to be. You'll know from writing every day that your essay is too long or too short without having to actually count the words. If you're doing the computer-based test, you'll be shown the number of words you've written on the screen, but if you're doing the paper-based test, just refrain from wasting time by counting up how many words you've actually written. Instead of counting the number of words, you're going to proofread your essay instead. Before I show you how to do that, let's look at how to organise your time. Altogether, to write your Task 2 essay, you have 40 minutes. The first 5 minutes should be used for question analysis and idea generation. Then you'll use the next 30 minutes to actually write the essay. And then the last 5 minutes will be used for proofreading your essay. Now, before you go to do your IELTS test, you need to be able to follow those timings. However, right now, it's likely that you need to focus on the quality of your essay first. So if you need a band 7.5 in your writing test, you need to be able to write essays of that standard first. Once you can do that, then you're ready to start focusing on how long it takes you. So, what is proofreading? Proofreading is basically reading the essay that you've written to find and to fix vocab and grammar mistakes. Any mistakes that you can fix is going to help increase your lexical resource and your grammatical range and accuracy band scores. Now, what most students do is they'll just read the essay from start to finish and hope that they find something, but this is not the approach that you're going to take. Instead, you're going to know what your key mistakes are before you go into the IELTS test. Then, when you're proofreading, you're only looking for these key mistakes that you regularly make. So, let's just say, for example, my key mistakes are punctuation, spelling, and articles. I'm going to read my essay one time and just look for punctuation mistakes. Then I'm going to read it a second time and only look for spelling mistakes. And then the third time, I'm just going to look for my article mistakes. By just focusing on one thing at a time, that will make it much easier to find any mistakes that you've made. If you don't already know what your key mistakes are, you can join my free live feedback lessons, and I'll leave a link in the description below so you can join those. So, as well as correcting your vocab and grammar mistakes, while proofreading, you have a really good opportunity to expand the range of vocabulary in your essay. There will probably be 1 or 2 words that you've used a lot when you're writing your essay, and if possible, you're going to cross them out and just write a synonym above. But of course, you're not going to take any risks. It's much better to use the same word 10 times in your essay than it is to have the incorrect word and then not have a coherent answer. And that is everything you need to know about writing a Task 2 essay. My next lessons will be focusing on IELTS Writing Task 1, so make sure to click subscribe and the bell icon so you don't miss those lessons. And as I said, I have a task for you. I want you to write a full essay for this question and post it in the comments below.